And we are recording.
Did you hear from anybody that could make it today?
I think the only one that is not able to make it is Deborah, who's a traveling county board meeting.
Right. Yeah, I didn't realize that was a conflict, but sometimes it's just going to happen.
Yeah.
I heard from Southwest, they want to bring their team out next on May 12th from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. You know what May 12th is, from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. The Avalo inaugural. So I was like, that's probably not the best day and time for us.
Kidding. And they keep pushing back the Chicago flight, right? United.
Yeah, all the way into September at this point. Yeah.
Oh, you know, it would help if I did a shared screen. Trial and error, Randy, trial.
Oh yeah, you've got that slate up. That's cool. And then I guess since you're going to let people into the meeting, I'll have you go through the attendees. Oh, you have new things, Randy, like that admit button is different than how I was doing it.
I learned that when you join these meetings as a host, you have to actually go into the Eugene Zoom join page for this
Mhm.
meeting. And it's like all sort of weird. It's like you don't actually click into the calendar invite to get into it.
Mhm. Yeah, no, that's how I was doing it, but maybe it just looks different on the other end. Hello. Hello there, Mr. Groshong.
Hello,
How are you?
I'm about average, I reckon. Which is pretty good for me.
Yeah. You getting the conference line going, Randy? Yeah, cool. There we go.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Before we get started, Catherine or Randy, what's the name of the person that's over in the admin building that deals with security badges? Is it Rachel?
I think you mean Kimberly.
Kimberly? Yes.
Yeah,
Really?
Kimberly Booth.
I need
Is it that time to renew your badge?
Well, I sold my plane earlier so I'm no longer in my hangar, and now I'm gonna have access to another plane.
Ah.
For the next, I have access to another plane in a different hangar, so I've been holding on to my badge, and I have till the end of the month to get it back if I can produce the lease, and I have a lease, so, yeah. Story
Very good.
short. But I deleted my conversations with Kimberly, so
Uh-huh.
I remember who I was chatting with.
I think you'll need a new signatory also.
Yeah, I think so.
Hey, look, Dan Rodriguez, he's on camera today.
Hey, I
How
know,
about
I know.
that?
Hold on one second. I finally got this thing right.
All
Took me a
right.
while, but I got it right. So, all
Very
right.
good.
We can't see the other participants, Catherine, so
Yeah, audio.
I think that you can, there's something you can click on to see everybody else. There's a slate, but you should be able to see people off to the side.
Talk like hell. I'll leave this meeting.
If you go to the view with the little Rubik's Cube looking thing in the upper right-hand corner, there should be a side-by-side gallery view.
well, I'm on an iPad.
All right, no big. Okay, thanks.
Hmm.
And
you're
I
in
mean, I
the-
can pull up, it'll show me who's there. I can see the participants, but normally over on the right, I have a little matrix. You know, it shows all the little spots. You hit that and then everybody appears unless they're speaking or
Well,
they're in
there's a
speaker
slate
mode,
up.
which I think you're in speaker mode. That's what I think's going on there.
Yeah, well, we have a slate, so Randy has taken over the controls because somebody needed to do that. And so she actually put together a slate, which is what you're seeing. The slides
right.
are moving through. And then, so that's probably why you're not seeing everybody on an iPad, I'm guessing, but I don't know.
Yeah. I'm on
no.
a regular computer, Dan Rodriguez here on an iMac, and all I see is who's talking. Like Catherine, I saw you now, and
Yeah.
I saw our Earth Wild United pilot who's got a great place in Kauai that I think he should invite us all over there to see him and talk about the airport sometime. And he could take us to all his favorite restaurants. And there's not that many of them that I ran into him every time I've been to Kauai. So
I think I liked it better when you were just on the landline, Rodriguez.
I thought so too, big guy.
But yeah, that's what's going on. All we can see are the people that are actually speaking. So I
Okay.
don't know what's different, but it is
It's
different.
probably because
than-
the slate is up. Maybe,
Yeah, okay.
Randy, what if you take the slate down and see what happens?
Actually,
Yeah.
Oh, there we
Oh,
go.
there we go.
Hey.
That's it.
I think that when the slide is up, if you go to the right-hand corner under view and change how you view your you can change it to a gallery.
Yeah, it's up. It's up now.
Yeah,
It
we
was,
can
it's
see.
because, yeah, anyway, it's
I
up.
think it's because the slate was up. Yeah. The
Yeah.
slate was very fancy, but I know you'd all like to see each other's faces too. So maybe we'll start with the slate and then we'll switch to faces.
Tina, are you part of the Gold Digger clan of Elmira?
Sorry, I'm not.
All right, well, there's a couple of us that refereed with the Gold Digger clan from Elmira, and then we had the guy on KP&W at one time. I forgot his name. He's passed away, unfortunately. Mike, yeah, he was the Mike Gold Digger.
Oh, yeah, Gold Digger. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Well, I have 12:03. I think, Randy, do you want to go through all the participants and then Petra can take over?
I just admitted Randy and Logan. Lucky for them that I allowed them to come in. For advisory, we got Dan Rodriguez, Bill Groshon, Mark Stringfield, Pietrek. City of Eugene, there's Travis Hargett, Andrew Martz, looks like Tammy Harchie. Advisory, we got Clarissa Warwick. City of Eugene, we have Dan DeRozzo, who is our project manager. We got United Station Manager, George I'm sorry, George, if I mispronounce your name. Ohanian. City of Eugene, Jody McNatt. Airport Advisory, Liz Gallagher. Airport Advisory, Matt Hogan. We got Public Works Director, Matt Rodriguez. City of Eugene Airport, Patricia Haley. Airport Advisory. We got City of Eugene, Sarah Pulse. Airport Advisory Committee member, Tina Goldberg. And Airport Advisory member, Baden Francisco, and of course, Catherine and myself are on here. Oh, and we have Miss Linda on our conference line.
Thank you for remembering.
Thank you, Randy. Welcome, everyone. I think that may serve as our introduction of guests, unless anybody wants to say a few words about any of the visitors want to introduce themselves. But if not, then I think, Catherine, we can proceed with the director's report.
Okay, very good. I will try to pick the correct screen today. Did I get it right, Randy? Is that a yes?
You did. Yep. Yeah.
Okay,
Good.
very good. Okay. There we go. Okay, well, here's the agenda. It was sent out to you earlier this week. We're going to go over, of course, the financial report. We're actually going to do that first because Patricia's in a training today and needs to hop back into that. We'll review the activity report. I'll give you a little air service development update, talk about our COVID recovery plan. And then Jody McNatt, who is our operations and training manager, will give us a presentation about her work area. And then, of course, we can turn it back over to Pietrek for discussion questions open to the floor. So Patricia, take it away, our financial report for March.
All right, our operating revenues came in a little over 5 million year to date. We're 46% below last year and below our budget. Our personnel is 10% under budget and 2% over last year. We did have a 3% increase in benefits and wages last year. Materials and services is 35% under budget and 8% under last year. Our capital is still the same tractor. The budget is starting to catch up with it. Central services chugs along at 1/12 every month, so it's right on target. 7% above last year, but that was an increase in the CSA. So our operating, we are at a -3 million, but we are being rescued by the CARES Act at 4.8 million drawn to date. So we're netting 1.8 in the positive, which will be used to fund some capital projects that we're working on.
Offline.
No.
I'm trying to print something and it won't print online.
Does anyone have any questions on this? So we processed 18 draws in CARES and we received over 9.85 million to date for fiscal year 20 and 21 to date.
Patricia, I have a question. I know we'll be using figures for our operations numbers as comparisons. I don't know if anybody else would find it helpful to maybe compare some of the financial reporting, maybe not monthly, but now and then, to how your returns to normal, hopefully, how we're doing compared to 2019.
Well, that's okay. We could slip in that. Yes, we can. We can certainly do that. I'll slip in another column on the right-hand side. So we've got a comparative to last year and then to 19 also. I think that's a really good ask. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Otherwise, thank you, Patricia. We'll let you hop off to your training.
Great. Thank you.
Right, and then we'll head right into the March activity report. We've changed it up a little bit, adding that comparison actually of 2019, 2020, and 2021. So that was a good suggestion, Patrick, to do that for the financials as well. Andrew?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you can see the numbers here, we're starting to see our numbers go back up for the most part. So that's good as we come out of 2019, which was obviously a rough year. So we were this time last year, we were down about 4%, and now we're up about 4%. So starting to climb back. Still have some routes that are routes that are pulled down. So you see that our carrier landings haven't quite recovered to 2019 levels, but we haven't lost any flights. So we're looking at hopefully those coming back. They're still get put on the schedule, and then obviously we have some new airlines coming through. So we're really excited to see an increase in activity. And plane passengers and total passengers, kind of similar stories on both. You're seeing where we were last year. And, if you remember last year, this is really when we were first starting to enter into the pandemic. So we really, it was really starting to come to a realization that it was going to really hit our industry hard. And now we see, the opposite end of the spectrum. We're starting to see ourselves come out of it. We're starting to see consistent passenger usage. Over spring break, our parking lot was at like 86% full. We were all like, wow, this is great. So, and we're holding, not at spring break levels, but we're holding pretty steady as far as some good activity. Load factors, again, they were starting to bottom out last year, and we're starting to see them come back up. We're over 60%. So, climbing back up to where we want to be. Still sitting in that kind of, for us, that's odd situation, right? With Alaska being the main percentage. That's just because United's kind of pulled back, especially on their main line. I don't anticipate that staying true for the long haul, but for right now, Alaska's got the largest share. And you can see cargo's been up across the board and really came up this last in 2020. So definitely seeing an increase in the use of our cargo facilities.
Questions about the activity report? And I'd also be curious, do you like this format? Do you have suggestions?
I have a question, Catherine, and this may be addressed later in the presentation. But there are news reports kind of more nationally, not so much in our region quite yet, regarding pilot staffing challenges. Yeah. So if you're going to talk about it later, that's fine. But I would be curious if we expect that to impact the recovery period at all, similar to what we're seeing in the hospitality industry at large.
Yeah, and I don't address it specifically in this presentation, but it is an issue, and it's definitely going to become more pronounced as we move back towards normal. Now, what may buffer it a little bit and prolong, when we really feel the full impact, is that international flying is really just not coming back at this point. And so all those pilots, of course, are being used domestically. But this goes back to what we discussed the other day with the Lane Aviation Academy and being able to train up those pilots, keep that both the pilot pipeline and the mechanic pipeline going, so that as we return to normal and above normal, really, which is what we're projecting sooner rather than later, that we will have pilots and mechanics to be able to keep the aviation system running. So yeah, good question, Liz. Okay, any other questions in the activity report? Okay, well, let's move on to, I wanted to start including some information about our general aviation community, because they're just as much of a part of our airport as commercial activity. Of course, we pay lots of attention to commercial activity because it pays the bills. But general aviation is actually really an important aspect. And especially during the pandemic, it became even more important for how people were comfortable flying. So I thought this was interesting to take a look at in March. And actually, Randy's been compiling this data, which is really useful. And she's actually done a regional comparison and a 10 up, 10 down. That was kind of a lot of information. So I pulled airports from other small hub airports in Oregon, and then also compared to Boise. Spokane's a little different because they have a reliever GA airport. And so I didn't try to mix apples and oranges here. But this is pretty interesting because it kind of is all over the place. It's been a mixed recovery regionally. So for 2021 compared to back to 2019 statistics, local traffic in March was down 15% at Eugene, up 94% in Medford, and up 47% in Redmond, and then down 14% in Boise. And then itinerant traffic, so traffic that comes from outside of our area into our airport and then back out again. At Eugene in March, it was down 5%, was up 23% in Medford, down 10% in Redmond, and up 6% in Boise. So if anybody can make sense of that, I would love to hear your theories. It's really all over the place. So we'll kind of keep tracking this to see if we can make some sense of it over a period of months. But some of it's related to flight school activity, but not all of it. I mean, Redmond's got a smaller flight school, but their main flight school is at the Bend Airport. So that's not explaining that either. Anyway, interesting to look at. I don't know exactly what it means, but there you have it. Questions about that? Okay. So on to air service updates. Of course, we all celebrated that Southwest announced their intent to serve a while back in the second half of 2021. And also the addition of, we're part of the 12 airports being announced to be served by Avelo Airlines coming up. So Southwest recently, just this last week, announced which routes. And as you'll remember, we kind of had taken a look at the different, our top 10 destinations, the top Southwest airports, and then took a look at where they were adding routes in these new markets that they're going into. And so we know now that Southwest is including us in that 17 new airports. And so this is what we had looked at. We thought, okay, probably Las Vegas, maybe Phoenix, maybe Denver, maybe Oakland, which is kind of the outlier. So what we are initially going to be seeing as far as service from Southwest is once daily service to Las Vegas and twice daily service to Oakland starting on August 29th. So that may seem like not a lot of service, but I think at this point, Southwest is trying to make really smart decisions. They cherry pick the stuff that's easy. Those are routes that we have, but they're currently served by less than daily service. And those were pretty easy decisions for them, I think. What we have seen happen in other markets where they're going in is they'll go ahead and just add new routes right away. So historically, routes can take years to gain with the airlines. It can be, I think it took us 5 years to get the Phoenix route on American. So we may see Southwest kind of accelerating this process as they feel more comfortable about adding new routes. So along with the Southwest routes, of course, the Hollywood Burbank route is coming in, starting up by Avelo, and that starts up on May 12th. So by the end of summer, we will have 15 nonstop routes, technically, because 2 of them are still on hold, Chicago and Portland. So Alaska, I met with all of our airlines virtually a couple of weeks ago. And so we know that Alaska Airlines doesn't intend to start the Portland route back up until probably fall. United has also indicated the same for Chicago. But the important thing is these routes are still showing in their forward-looking schedules. So they've not canceled them, they've not pulled them, they just keep postponing them and pushing them further out. And then on the positive side, Allegiant starts up San Diego service again in May, and Palm Springs service in the November-December timeframe. So another good thing. So most routes we've ever had nonstop at Eugene. That's a really great thing, especially considering the last year that we've all been through and coming out of the pandemic stronger than we went into it. So just a little bit more on the Southwest ads. So, I was a little concerned that we're only getting 2 routes. We definitely were feeling like we probably could have supported a little bit higher amount of either routes or frequencies. So Jay Singh from Simple Flying actually had some good insights that I wanted to share with you. He posted this on April 18th. It's kind of a blog for airport and airline geeks. So really what he's doing is affirming that as long as the Eugene market is responsive and starts to book these routes being offered by Southwest and continues to show strong, market demand, that most likely we'll see other ads like Denver or Phoenix. So if I were to guess, I would say probably Denver first, just ranks a little bit higher in our top 25 list, and then maybe Denver. And another good example of this is in Bozeman. They started with, I think, 3 destinations, and they almost immediately added frequency on their Denver route. So we could see that happen as long as our community is being responsive and actually booking flights. Any questions about that?
Catherine, this is Randy. I have a question. Have we got any sort of feedback, or have they offered feedback from Allegiant or any of the competitors that we have that are servicing those routes currently?
As far as new airlines coming in?
No, the existing providers we have any of them voiced criticism of competitors for those routes?
Of concerns? Actually, it's surprisingly the opposite. And it's because in the current financial situation that everybody's in, the more airlines that are serving Eugene means the more airlines that are paying the bills. And so it was really kind of refreshing. I talked to our properties manager for American Airlines because we are actually needing to relocate American from using gate A6 over to gate A1. And had a conversation with the property manager and thanked her for, being so flexible to move, and we didn't get any pushback at all. And she said, hey, look, we're glad to have more airlines coming because it means less risk for us. We can spread the expense of operating the airport even more evenly across all of these airlines, and it's less risk for all of us. So that was really refreshing to hear.
Yeah, that is good. Thanks.
Any other questions? Okay. Well, then we will go on to our fun pandemic passenger traffic map that I hope one day we won't need to be looking at anymore. But this just shows the second week of April. The Eugene TSA throughput was tracking at about 75%. Compared to 2019 passenger numbers. So you're going to really see us comparing mostly back to 2019 because 2020 was a crazy year. And it's more meaningful to kind of take a look at where we were before the pandemic. So compared to 2020 passenger numbers, it's obviously a drastic improvement of more than 1,400%. Nationwide passenger traffic is tracking at about 56% of pre-pandemic levels. So we are tracking at about 10% above the national average. And I think most small hub airports are seeing very similar kinds of numbers. The large hubs are still not seeing a big rebound in passengers. Well, ultimately, this will mean really great things for local airports because it will get people off the roads, which is what we've been trying to do for years, utilize their local airport, and we will gain more air service. Which we've already seen, 15 routes coming by the time we hit September, with more than we've ever had. So it's having the effect that will be really positive for our community overall. Okay, so digging into that a little bit more, looking at forward-looking airline schedules as we turn the corner on this downturn. We really turned the corner in July. So with 13% more departures and 5% more seats than in 2019. So that's pretty positive. And these numbers are probably pretty solid. And there's always a chance that airlines will make some adjustments and the further out, the more adjustments that could be made. But we are also, having just met with all of our airline partners, and more specifically, Southwest has been really pretty forthcoming with us about their bookings. And they are feeling very comfortable that April and May are going to be pretty soft. But starting in June, they really see passenger traffic coming back. And by summer, they say that we're really going to be in pretty good shape. So that's very encouraging. Now, of course, if we continue to move into high risk, if we have more variants, if we have, fourth wave or more, all of those things can impact this. But it's when airlines are being positive, that's a good indicator that we're going to be in pretty good shape. So if we look at the departures and the seat capacity for September 2021, with all the new routes in our market, we will see 33% more departures and 30% more seats compared to 2019. So that's where we're saying we're actually coming out of this pandemic stronger than we went into it. Now, these are seats, right? So we don't know if that means passengers, because we could still see load factors around 60 to 70%, which is not where the airlines want or need them. They need them to be back up around 80%. But again, the airlines are feeling comfortable, and there's some competition at work here, right? Because they want to gain market share where they can gain it. And so we're seeing that they're putting all of this capacity into our network in hopes that they'll be the ones that come out with more passengers in the end. Any questions about that? Okay, well, let's talk about COVID recovery plan. So we have a lot of things coming our way that are going to be positive, but we're of course needing to wait to hear about most of them. So the American Rescue Plan Act, we are still waiting for detail on this from the FAA. We have heard anywhere from 5.4 million to 17 million that Eugene will be getting from this grant program, but we think the number is closer to 7, somewhere in there, but not knowing exactly the formula that's being used is definitely different than CARES Act formula. It's very different than CRISA funding. And we don't know what kind of rules are going to come along with utilizing this funding. So we're just in a wait and see mode on that, but we know that there's more relief coming, which will help us. And then at the same time, there are community funding projects that are being considered. These are earmarks by Congress. That it's the first time that Congress has been allowed to have earmarks in 10 years. So we've all been kind of relearning this process. And we've submitted a request. We had to really look pretty hard to find a project because it needed to be AIP eligible. It needed to be on our capital improvement program. And it needed to be under $1 million, which all of our projects are well over $1 million. The one that we really wanted was about a $10 million project. So we really had to, we had some inquiry with our congressional, with Congressman DeFazio's office to say, okay, are there going to be different rules for the airport improvement program community funding projects or not? And they said, no, it's really going to need to be a lower ticket item. And so we took another look and we looked at our apron lighting project and realized we could probably do that for just under $1 million. So we put that one out there. It hits all the marks: safety, security, capacity, and environmental. And then the response so far, what we received back was, well, we think we can fund that with additional funding that will be coming through the infrastructure package. So it's kind of it's a back and forth, but this is a strong project and we think we will eventually get funded in some way to be able to move this project up on our priority list. So that could come from the transportation reauthorization bill. There is not a timeline out there on that yet, so we don't know what that might look like, although there's some new information today that came out showing that it could mean potentially, I think it was 44 billion for airports, which would be huge. It's far more than how airports are being funded currently through airport improvement program funds. And then there's the American Jobs Plan as well that also could potentially provide another funding source. So lots of new funding opportunities out there. It's just going to take work and patience to figure out how we're going to be able to tap into those resources. Questions? Okay, well, next up is Jody McNatt. She is our airport operations and training manager, and she's going to tell us about her work area.
Hello, everyone. It's nice to see all your faces. Too bad we can't see it in person. So the Airport Operations Department is getting back to work. It got pretty slow there for a while, but oh my gosh, we were rusty and now we're boots on the ground running. So it's nice. It's great relief to see things progressing so well. So the airport operations, we are in support of basically the safety of our airfield and our public spaces. Why are we here? We are, for one, governed by multiple agencies. We have policies and regulations that we have to enforce. And so it is our position to make sure that we stay current on everything. We also act as liaisons between different agencies, rather the air traffic control tower, the NTSB for incidents that we may have on the airfield, VIP dignitary arrivals. We help coordinate those activities. And also we work with the Department of Defense and military for their mobilizations or just simple as fueling needs. Okay, so here's my team. We have Kyle, he's the one that's hiding behind the sign. And to the right of him, we have our new hire. Too bad you can't see his face. That's Dylan Davison. And then I guess to the left, and then to the right, we have Cliff Lyon. And then in the front of the sign, we have Pete Wigman. They are a great talent. And I am so thankful and lucky to have them as part of my team. So we have, as you can see, 4 operations duty officers. And they are all, I have one that is ACE certified in the Airport Certificated Employee Program through AAAE. The other 3 are working on getting theirs. Not quite Dylan yet, but it's on his task for next year. We work during the hours that the air traffic control tower is open. So that is essentially from 0600 to 2330 daily. However, we have them show up at 0500 to be here in response just in case we have something that happens before the tower opens, and we hold them over a little bit in the evenings or in the mornings, I should say, for weather or oddball situations that may happen. Otherwise, we have 2 terminal employees that will cover in the off shift for 3.5 hours. So our first job is we act as first responders. So we have to make sure for every incident that we respond and we write the appropriate report for that, because everything is a matter of public record. And so if we're investigated, we have all the information on hand. So that would be aircraft accidents, incidents, public accidents, incidents on the property. Of course, wildlife strikes, weather conditions, what is our field conditions so we can make it safe for our pilots and our passengers. And also airside driving violations. That one's not as much fun. And also radio communications and also failures that may occur for those. So those are just a handful of things that we do. We offer 24/7 coverage. We're a 24-hour airport now. And so we make sure that we have our staff on hand just in case we're needed. And so we monitor airfield maintenance and construction, airport activities, like I mentioned. We may have dignitaries or oddball things that occur on the field. We respond and we support those activities to make sure everybody's safe. Commercial airline activities, tenants, we act as a mobile dispatch service, and aircraft equipment parking. That's getting to be tricky because of the new people moving in. So I know Andrew, Travis, and I are working hard to make sure we're up on that. And emergency and incident response in case we have any medical issues on the field as well. So we are a 139 certificated airport. What that means is that gives us the permission to operate as a commercial airport. And so in support of that, we have an airport certification manual. That is essentially our plan of how we're going to enforce federal rules and regulations to make sure that we're compliant. So under that plan, we have to have an airport emergency plan. We have to have a wildlife hazard management plan, snow and ice control plan, and the Eugene Airport is also a low visibility SMIGS airport. So that means that during these foggy conditions, we are safe and we are certified to allow aircraft and air carrier to land and take off on our field. And we recently went from 500-foot runway visual range down to 300-foot runway visual range, which is huge. So that opens up our opportunities to aircraft so we can maintain functionality during low visibility. We're actually the 9th airport in the nation to have this certification. So it's actually a pretty big deal and I'm excited about it. We also do personnel training and records retention. That way, if anything were to happen on our field, we have all the records for investigators to come look at. It's just basically a liability security or security blanket, I should say, keeps us safe and out of trouble. We also have airport advisories. And so each section of the 139, yeah, this is what you have to do, but how do we do that meets the regulation is we have to look at the airport advisory circular for that particular regulation. And so it gives us step-by-step instructions on how to make things work, so to speak. We also are responsible for the state of Oregon public safety. So that's also monitoring and reporting spills. So we have to be current with our spill prevention control countermeasure plan. We have to read it and be able to reference it so we know how to report spills. Same thing with our stormwater pollution control plan. As we're out in the field, if we see anything that doesn't look right, we have to be able to report that. And same thing with OSHA rules and regulations. And public safety, this is where we help Travis Farr get out. We assist with the parking control and enforcement on the front curb. But that's the traffic controls because you can't leave your car unattended. So we have to remind our drivers of that. We do have citation authority. So if you can't follow the rules, there's a penalty for that. We have to stay in line with municipal court standards. Fortunately for us, we have Travis to translate all that for us. We monitor the public roadways and parking lots. And as you can see, that photo, that happened on the end drive of the terminal, probably about 3 weeks ago now, 4 weeks ago. I don't remember exactly, but yes, we did have a rollover. Texting while driving. And
How fast was he going?
who knows, but he was not paying attention. I should have put the power pole, the light pole picture in there because he did a doozy on it too. So how do we keep up with all this? Well, employee training, that's the biggest and hardest portion of the airport operations job, I think, just to make sure that we are all current. And now everyone that does operations, we have not only my core group of 4 people, but we have terminal staff that are airport operations qualified. We have our airfield maintenance, they're all airport operations qualified, and our landscape department. So that way we can have a redundancy in case we have an emergency or anything were to happen. We can pull from those departments to just make sure that we're still compliant no matter what the situation is. And so here are the topics that just a handful, we have 28 categories. However, here's just a small little bit for you guys to see of what we do. So we've got low visibility, emergency response, wildlife management is a big one, winter operations is a big one. And of course, communicating with our air traffic it's another important process. And of course, we have to be familiar with our airfield. So we make it a point to make sure everybody knows where they're at all times. So another way that we keep up is with our increased traffic and growing pains, we have to do a lot of research and development. And so I'm actually having my staff dig a little bit deeper in their positions and having them help me with developing training programs and also with the research portion. Or if they have any ideas, let's talk about it and see if we can be more efficient. Technology, it's becoming our friend. We're embracing it. So the FAA, they are creating web-based reporting systems for us to use. So that's helped us out in our records retention. We have also what we call Prodigic. That is a web-based reporting program that we use. It's a reporting system, and we've actually expanded it to our gate management area under Travis to make sure that we can find spaces for all of our planes that are coming at us. And we're always trying to figure out, what's our goal in this job? We can't just tread water continuously. You always have to have a goal. How do we get better? How are we more efficient? Are we meeting our customer service needs? So we're always having that conversation. And then once again, the monthly employee training. And that's in a nutshell what Eugene Airport Operations Department does. Any questions?
Great report.
Oh, thank you, Phil.
So what Jody didn't mention is that the operations team, so they're, in normal years, they have an in-person inspection. It's our Part 139 inspection. Last year was a little weird because the FAA folks weren't traveling, and this year we still don't quite know what they're doing. But the 2 prior years to that were perfect record for what the airport controls as far as Part 139 inspection. So that's a great achievement. And then Jody mentioned the SMIGs coming down to that 300-foot runway visual range level. That is really huge. That was, we may only have one airline that utilizes our airport currently that can go down that far, which is Alaska Airlines. But to have that capability, and especially for diversions and emergency situations, that's really huge. We're the only SMIGS airport between here, Portland is the one to the north, and then all the way to the Bay Area. So we really provide a critical service around low visibility operations, landing and takeoffs when needed. So kudos to Jody and her team. Questions for Jody? Bill?
Hey, Catherine and Jody, when we get out of this someday pandemic thing, would really be nice for the new members on the committee, which there are a lot, to get a real in-person tour of the airfield, which we used to do, put them in a van and take them around and show them what really is going on, because to get a real feel for the scope of the operation, I think that would really be helpful.
I totally agree. I think we're getting closer. We've wanted to have the mask mandate be lifted, or at least have some of the rules relaxed around it. And then, number of passengers and vehicles and that kind of thing. But yeah, absolutely. We'd love to have people come out and do a tour.
May 11th is when hopefully the federal government will lift the transportation side of the mask mandate. We'll see. I heard Tammy laugh next door.
I know, yeah. Or at least modify it. If it's
at least modify it.
Yeah.
But I think as people get vaccinated more and more, it should help relax things a little bit.
It would be nice. So right now, our guys out mowing the grass in the back 40, they have to wear a mask the whole time, even though they're by themselves in the field. So some of those kind of common sense things would be nice if they were adjusted.
Catherine, NBC News has stated that this CDC now is reviewing the mask thing and talking about that if you're outdoors, you probably will not need it unless you're at a ball game or somewhere where there's a gathering of people, that it just doesn't really make sense. But and maybe by May they'll announce that. So hopefully we're all going towards that direction.
Yeah, thanks for that, Dan. I did see that today. So hopefully that will play a part in it. So, because it is hard for our workers to be operating heavy machinery and needing, all by themselves and still needing to be wearing a mask.
And it also creates a safety hazard for them as well. You know, if they're wearing goggles and have their masks on, they're fogging up while they're trying to operate heavy equipment. Yeah, it's no fun.
Okay, well, Patrick, I'll turn it back over to you. See if there's some general questions.
Yeah, thank you, Catherine. Does anybody have any questions about the presentation today?
The new startup airline, the one going to Burbank, they are paying the same rates as everyone else, right? There was no, because we didn't really ask them to show up. There's no incentive or anything for them. Is there, Catherine, on any of the rates and charges
So there is an incentive because our incentive package is set.
for new routes?
And so for new routes, so,
Okay.
but they did sign on as a signatory airline.
Oh.
Yes, so that's
Wow.
great. So yes, so Burbank does qualify, but because they are flying 4 days a week, we've offered only a 12-month landing fee waiver.
Okay. Thank you. I did look at their fares and it's $19 one way to Burbank. So, you know.
Yeah.
Hey,
Does that include parachute?
yeah, probably. Bring your own.
Well, if nobody else has any questions, I'd just like to end it with a kudos to Catherine for a good presentation at the Eugene Summit yesterday on the rebuilding the hospitality industry. I don't know if any of you had a chance to participate, but it was very good. And with that, unless I hear any other questions, we are adjourned.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody. It's
you.
nice to see you.
Thank
Hopefully we
you.
can
Thanks,
get back
everyone.
together in person one of these days soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Catherine.
Yep, thanks.